Hello and welcome to the second of our series of meetings with the filmmakers here at Curtas. Today we have with us the filmmakers whose films screened yesterday. We have Benjamin de Burca with his film Fala da Terra, Voice of the Land, which was co-directed with Barbara Wagner. Inês Teixeira, Corpos Cintilantes, Shimmering Bodies. And also from the film Zoopticon we have John Freaky, Tias Minter and Sandra Tostil. Thank you all for being here. I'll start with you, Inês. Welcome to Curtas and congratulations on an impressive and wonderful first film. To start, can you tell us a little bit about the initial idea for the film and how this project came about?
Hello, everyone, and thank you for the invitation and the selection for the festival. I think I was looking for a story that I could make, like a simple story for my first short film. And I was thinking, and one day I remember something that happened to me in my teenage years, where a friend of someone from the school, not even in my class, like an acquaintance maybe, invited me to spend a weekend in his house. And from that memory, I was like, okay, maybe this is a good theme to explore, like the desire and how girls deal with what is happening through the teenage years. And I think it started from there, like from that starting point, like when someone asks you when you are not sure if the other person is also into you, and the speculation and the seduction game. But then I was like, okay, I just want to talk about the desire, and I don't want anything to happen inside the movie, so we could be on that level of guessing and trying to, like her, to imagine what is happening and following the clues. So I think it was the starting point.
But also the opportunity to make your first film, what was the story behind that? Were you looking for a project for a couple of years maybe, or did you already have this story in your mind for some time?
No, I think I spent a lot of years like working in films like as a script supervisor, and one day, I think like in my late 20s, I was like, yeah, when I was younger, I think I wanted to direct a film, and I forgot about that. And now maybe I have that drive again. And so slowly, really slowly, like the writing process, it was super long since I had the first idea until it became a film. So I think I just wrote it in my free time, and I go back to it when I had time. And after like 2 or 3 years, I tried like apply to funding, and when that started to happen, it was like, okay, now let's do it for real.
I wanted to ask you about the screenwriting process, and did you have a clear structure of the story from the beginning? Was something that you went back and forth? Because these, like you were saying, these themes of discovery and definition and doubts, also with the relationships, is that something that you wanted to explore and you tried to with the screenwriting?
Yeah, I think like at the beginning it was really much more descriptive and with a lot of dialogue and things where it was more direct to the point where they talk about it. And then I worked on the script, and I think I found the right amount of what was needed. And I also did a writing residency with other filmmakers and like a script consultant that I really liked and really helped me moving like the script to a next level. Because at the beginning, like the sculptures in the beginning of the film were much more present. They were like reading the text in the streets to the sculptures, and everyone was like, I think this looks like an architectural film, and then it's something else. And it really helped me to, okay, maybe this has to be toned down, and I have to focus more like on what I'm trying to say, and keep the sculptures as it is, like a metaphor that is there for who wants to see it, but if you don't see it, it's not a problem. So yeah, I think it was like step by step trying to take out what wasn't needed.
And how was it discovering and working with this group of actors? Did you already have someone in mind when you were writing, or was it something that came out later? And also, did you use a lot of rehearsal? Was there room for improvisation during the filming, or was it more like what was in the screenplay?
I did like a casting call, but I already knew Maria, who is the main actresses, and I had this secret like idea, like she's perfect for it, but I want to see her on casting also. And I saw like a lot of amazing young actresses and young actors, and it was really hard to make a choice. But then, like, I think they work really good together, and they were both exactly what I was looking for. And I also had the help of Miguel Nunes, an actor, as like a casting director, and helping with to make sure that the casting experience was good and like a good environment and not harmful to them. So I think we did a really cool casting with them. And then on like during the shooting, I didn't have like a lot of rehearsal, but I think we have time to, okay, let's do it again, let's try something different. But I think it's the things are so simple, and what's happening is just one thing, that there isn't also that much room to explore.
There's a lot of reflection about one's image, and the body is image also. It's a theme that's very present throughout the film in various scenes, like the scene when she's looking at the mirror, trying with the bathing suit, and the swimming pool, and the way also the main character looks at other people. Mm-hmm. So was this an important subject that you wanted to explore with the film, and see where you could go with the story with that?
Yeah, I think like bodies, like her own image, but also the others, like different female characters in different stages of life that she looks up to, and in a way like there isn't much room to explore secondary roles in the short film, but I think it's there, the way that these more confident women that she meets there they help her see like new ways of behavement, and she's like established in Lisbon still, like with talking with her friends, but then when she gets there, I think she loses a little bit of confidence, and step by step she will learn how to conquer that again. And yes, I think even the sculptures also talk about bodies and the representation and the constraints. So yeah, bodies and the way we look at each other, or to be seen or to see, are the main themes of the film.
And there's one thing that you talked about, which was a kind of breakthrough that happens in the film, and I wanted to ask about that, because there's a few times in the film where you play variations with lightning. For example, the scene with the fireflies and the lamp at the dinner table. There's also a scene near the end when she's looking at herself, a reflection, and then she fades away. But I think for me the most amazing shot was the one with the vase near the end, which shows not only the passage of time, but after that we see her in the swimming pool. And how did you come to that shot of the vase as such symbolic and importance in the film? Was that an idea from the beginning, for example? Or?
Yeah, I think it was from the beginning. Like I wrote that she goes to the kitchen, see herself in the mirror, and then she goes through the hallway, but the camera stays in the flowers. But it wasn't that clear on my mind how was it going to work in an image. And we, like in the first technical visits, we talked about to put the flowers in the kitchen, in the same shot where she sees herself in the reflection. But then we were like, no, this is awful, like the kitchen is ugly, it will be in just a window. And we look for something else and we find the hallway and it has like this window on the side. And I think it really worked better there because it's only about that. And it's not connected to the previous scene, is a step further. And but I'm really happy because it worked better than I expected.
No, it worked wonderfully, I think. Thank you, Inês.
Thank you.
Benjamin, hi and welcome back to Curtas. It's always a pleasure to have you here and be able to talk with you about your films. Unfortunately, this year Barbara couldn't make it, but you've been here sometimes already. And I think even though your films share a common language, they are always different in their own way. So just for start, for this one, I'd like to ask you about the background for the story and the MST and the landless workers movement, and how that came to you and how that developed into making a film about it.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, myself and Barbara have been here a few times. Barbara was here last time. I was here 4 years ago, I think, 5 years. We came to recognize around the period of the pandemic, although our kind of our interest in the landless workers movement extends beyond that period of time, but it was a moment where you could see distinctly a change in attitudes in Brazil towards the group, the social movement, which is the largest in South America, because of their program of donations of organic food to urban areas around the cities. So I suppose in many respects the first time they became more visible in urban centers and cities where the government wasn't basically doing anything. So through donation processes and distribution process of food, they became much more present and started to change the nature of the image that was cast on them by a lot of the kind of more neoliberal kind of images coming from the mediated images from the south of the country and around the centers of capital. So yeah, we had an interest in the group already, and specifically in their use of theatre as a form of activism, as a form of education. So through theatre such as that of Augusto Boal. So we wanted to analyze that, and we worked with a collective from the state of Pará called Coletivo Banzeiros, who were producing a play at that moment in time, and we looked to discuss and see how we could amplify that message through adapting their play to cinema.
Yeah, because I think also part of the movement came into more of a central role because they became almost an enemy that was chosen by certain political parties. And but for example, going back a little bit, your previous film was 100 Steps was visually a little bit different than this one, I think. And I was wondering when I was watching this new one, and I've seen so many of your works, when you are looking for a new film, what are you looking for in terms of trying to explore a new language, or maybe doing things differently, you know, and how it adapts to the particular story of that time? And in this aspect, I think it comes through also with the more theatrical look of the film.
Yes.
And maybe you can talk a little bit about how that became so central in the film.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is to make a film that continues to make a portrait of artists, and like with 100 Steps and all of the previous films, we worked with artists usually of dance or music and poetry, and in this instance we were looking at artists that were using theatre, and then within the larger mantle of an activist group. So how do we maintain a portrait of the theatre, of the group that make theatre,
Mm-hmm.
and not of simply the play that exists? So it's a kind of it's a delicate balance, and I think we sort of managed to do that through the gesture of showing the backstaging of it too, and also the people, which there's one scene in particular which reveals people watching the play, and those people are the survivors of the massacre de Zel.
Okay.
Survivors and leaders of that area, the survivors of the massacre of El Dorado de los Carajás. So they're, 30 years later, 25, 30 years later, they're watching the following generation of members of the landless workers movement explaining to yet another generation, as in a younger generation, through education, through using theatre, the forces of oppression that exist in the area. And so this again returns back to Boal's Theatre of the Oppressed, and how myself and Barbara try and use cinema also to adapt, or let's say adapt cinema to how the people we're working with wish to see their image, how they use, how they mediate those messages, and then as opposed to making them adapt to the cinema, we try and adapt to what they're doing already, and in the context of where they live.
Yeah, because I thought it was very interesting, because in this film, the theater, it works almost as a learning mechanism for the viewer, because you can learn the history through their words, and in a way, it's almost like an education element in this film, and which gives us a bit more context than you usually give in your films, I think. Maybe because this story was more political, more important to be maybe straightforward. I don't know if maybe that affected your approach when you were deciding how to film it.
Certainly, I would agree with that. And when we were working in the area, and every day we are receiving enough information for a week to ingest in one day, so it's a hugely complex subject, and in a hugely complex area that is so integral to everything about our survival as a species on this planet. Essentially speaking, they're kind of working on the frontier of the Amazon, or in many respects exactly where the most extractive practices occur, and where most activists are assassinated because of those extractivist principles. But how do you translate all that? I'm not sure. I think it's another film. I think what we needed to do was to look at exactly what they're producing in terms of the image that they wish to mediate within themselves, because most of the time most of the production around what the landless workers movement is more documentary, is more explicatory about who they are as a movement and how it works. And in this sense, we wanted to look at exactly how the images that they produce themselves, and that's it. I think it's kind of tricky.
Yeah. And how was it working with the people that you were working in this film, you are used to working already with artists, but in this case with the people who are used to theater. So were there some new challenges? I mean, there's always, I guess, some element of unpredictability when you are dealing with the local people and how they want to be portrayed.
Sure. The unpredictability came from the area, the violent nature of the area, the extractive nature of the area. So we suffered an accident, for example, on the motorway, and it was related to that form of violence that people suffer there every day. So, but it was a fantastic learning curve for us, for myself and Barbara. It was an honor to work with people that were so generous and open and would spend such an amazing amount of time and have so much patience to sit down, discuss, make sure that everyone is heard, and continually work on the process of an engagement where everybody knows why and for what reason, and everyone to a certain degree is giving their assent. So a lot of conversation, a lot of dialogue, and also a lot of celebration. Maria Raimonda, who's one of the people on the scene, but also the woman at the end, which was the campo pedagogico, a pedagogical camp on the site of the massacre, celebrating. And she always says, "There's no fight, there's no activism without celebration." So, and this is something that always sticks with me. I think we have to remember that. To be an activist, I think you also have to look at the things that bring us together rather than the things that pull us apart, you know. And I really appreciate that kind of approach. Also, like, it's a very matrifocal organization, so women are very much at the forefront of making some of the more important decisions about how to progress.
Yeah, and I think you can see that in the film completely. Thank you. And now I'll talk to the Zoopticon team. Thank you so much for being here. I hope congratulations on your world premiere last night. I hope you were happy with it. I think for me it's this wonderfully imaginative film. I think it's fair to say that an animation which is also a sci-fi musical, which is also set in space and is also about loneliness and memories, it's not probably an easy concept to come by. So I was wondering what was the starting point, how this all came together. But first, I'm also very curious about your partnership, because if my research is correct, you are from 3 different areas or backgrounds. John, you are more of an animation director, and you already have several shorts. And Sandra, you are more connected to documentary and installation. And Thies, you are more of a musician, composer, I think. So I was wondering how that all came together to come to this film.
I think a project of this complexity can only work with people that trust each other and work together in a collective and are in constant exchange while maintaining the I'm stuck.
Yeah, that's a good point when you're 3 people. So I take over?
Yes,
okay.
please.
So as you said, we're all kind of solid artists, but we all have different skills. And with a project this size and this direction with music and telling the story over music and with animation, and so I think we tried out a little bit this combination with my last feature documentary, and had some elements in there with animation, and John did the animation, and he's always making the music. So, and that's where we started to work together, and we talked about this yesterday a lot. What is it? This collective work. I think I enjoyed it. I don't know. I don't want to speak for the others.
Oh, it was awful. It was tough. I'd like to just answer your question real quick, because I think your question was what was the starting point, and it was Thies's idea, to make actually like at first it was just like a performance, and the idea was to have some animation that's projected on the stage, and we have singers and do it, and that's kind of how it started, and that's why it's like a musical, and then it just turned into a short film, and that's what makes it so crazy, is that it has a different starting point or different base than most short films have, because most short films, or the ones that I do, are usually, it's going to be a situation or a topic or something, and it's a bit simpler. And if you come from a performative or theatrical point of view, it can be like super weird and complex, and I think that's part of the reason why it turned out the way it turned out.
Want to add something?
Yes, and I mean, in theatrical context, you can also narrate something by just saying that it is, and holding up a cloth and saying this is the sea. And in animation, you can actually show what you're saying, what is. So in this way, it's a very nice way to translate it, which you can't do in real life. You can do it on a stage. You can't do it in short film, I think, but you can do it in animated film. So that was very natural to go from the stage idea to the animation idea. And then it's beautiful what you can do with animation. So I'm happy we went that way.
Yeah, but specifically the story, the idea for the story, how did it develop? Did you have like the whole idea from the beginning? Was like a long process of changing ideas? How was sharing the screenwriting?
I think it was Thies' idea, the Zoopticon. The first idea came from Thies, and then I thought perhaps we should bring together this team, and we had for the writing we had another one. We were 4, so and so it was a kind of a process to have the storyline, and which we did all together, and I think it changed over the process a lot here and there, and then the lyrics Thies wrote, because everything is sung and
most things are sung, but I think it's also, well, it started from the idea of anthropomorphic animals singing philosophical theses, and then we were looking for a storyline that would actually carry that. And we took it from there, I think. So that was the very, very basic idea. And I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of the panopticon, which is kind of a Foucault idea, which goes back to prisons from the 19th century. And we took it from there. So, I don't want to go too far into that. So maybe.
And he's responsible for the jokes.
What? Oh yeah, I'm responsible for the funny bits. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And perhaps you realize it's the Zoopticon, the voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also.
But that's a good point, because the music is very central here, and I was wondering what came before. So did you, when you were writing music, were you writing already to animation, to images, or was the images came after the music?
Well, actually, it came about all together. So first, we developed this screenplay with kind of drafts of the lyrics. There were some song ideas which were musically kind of exploring the style we were assuming, also musically and from the visual side. But then we developed the storyline and developed a storyboard, and then wrote the first songs, and then went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth throughout the whole process, from the animatic, writing music, first drafts, singing it in very croaky voices without any of the voice cast, and then taking it step by step.
And also developing the animation, designing the characters. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah. First of all, it's the longest project that I've ever worked on, and when I look at the very first images of the animals, or also the second and third sketches. It's totally different now, but as it always is, in the end, it kind of makes sense. Or you somehow, I think it was the question yesterday too, like after 2 weeks, it feels like, yeah, this is the way it always was, but it really wasn't at all. Like it was totally different at the beginning. Apart from the fact that at some point you just have to agree on something and stick to it, I think it's kind of intuitively, and then in the end you try, like when you think about what am I going to ask answer if I get asked this question, then you start thinking, oh, I think the answer is that the figures are what am I trying to say? Well, they look different from the artifacts that we see, and the spaceship looks a bit different. And I think it all does have some reason. Like the artifacts, they're usually 3D or 3D-ish, and they kind of look like you want to touch them, and like they're valuable or something. And that's because in the end we just throw them out, right? We have to really like these artifacts. If they look crappy or just like hand drawn, then we don't care so much. But they're precious, and the characters. They just needed to be really simple for some reason, but somehow it makes sense if they're just really simple. Yeah.
But they also needed to look very cute.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of geometrical and kind of cute.
And
That was.
There's some comedy in the way that they can look and how some can.
Yeah.
With all these different elements, can you speak a little bit about? I'm sorry. With all these elements, can you speak a little bit about the working as a team when you're dealing with different areas than yours? So, if one person is doing lyrics and music, other is doing animation, and how do you deal with working as a team? Because you also do solo work. So,
Yeah.
that's the main difference, maybe?
Well, to put it real short, democracy, because we're 3 people, so one person can just say, "Sorry, I lost. You guys win," right? And that happened a few times.
Yeah.
So, but you have to be able to lose, and to kill your darlings, like it always is in film. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this yesterday a lot. I think what happened, kind of, none of us would have done this movie like this just on his or her own,
Mm-hmm.
and so this brought up something really new and special, and we wouldn't have imagined it on our own, and so I
It's
think
like piling up the weirdness.
yeah, and we
Piling
talk.
up the weirdness and creating a very weird big entity that made the film.
Yeah, like
And-
an AI or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And were you surprised sometimes with the direction it went?
Well, for one thing, I would have ended it at 10 minutes or 11 minutes maybe, because I had to do the animation. So if it were just up to me, yeah.
You sure?
Oh yeah, maybe 13.
I think I can remember that I
Hey,
cut
no, at
out
some
a
point-
lot
yeah.
of your.
No, at some point, especially I was just like, okay, it doesn't really make a difference if it's 25 or 29 now. So now it's 29. As long as we're under 30, I guess.
Well, that was the point where we got the idea for the log entries.
Yeah.
But that's interesting about the length of the film, because usually animation are pretty short, and I think it's more rare that they are longer and as ambitious as yours. So, and I think it really works in the favor of the film, the length, because it really helps to set the mood, and there's this kind of period of melancholia that the main character feels that we also need to feel before we can move into the part where the other characters show up. Were you thinking about the length being an important element, or was it discussed
I'm
between
also
you?
the producer, so perhaps I say something. We first started to want to make 13 minutes. So, and then, then there was this story and it developed, and, a film has to be as long as it has to be, I think. And so this happened, kind of, yeah.
But what was also clear from the beginning, that we wanted to have these moments where you have time to breathe and actually develop the melancholic moments that you need to set up the atmosphere and the whole narration. So that was important to give it time.
The
Yeah.
repetition, yeah, with the music also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the rhythm. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Was-
Yeah. So one last question about the film, because I think thematically the film is very interesting, because underneath all these lights and on the music and the singing, it starts as a pretty sad story of a lonely character, of feeling powerless because he feels like he doesn't have any control, and then it kind of shifts to being about discovering identities and creating or discovering identities. And what memories can be, or what they are, especially from Zoopticon. But again, in the end, it's when we are revealed the origins of the character, it becomes sad again because we discover the fate of Earth. And I was wondering how this mix of feelings was. It something that you wanted to explore? Is this like an important subject for you guys to go to these places?
Who wants to answer?
I'll just start out by answering something that it doesn't really answer your question, but I think we kind of just gave into the movie also with a length. I mean, the movie kind of won, and we just kind of did. We're like, okay, that's what the movie needs, and that's the way it sometimes is, I think. But also at the beginning, we actually didn't know that we were going to throw out the artifacts. And in the end, it just seems like so obvious that we have to throw out the artifacts. I mean, I think every script book would say, yeah, and then you have to throw out the artifact. But somehow we didn't know that it was going to happen, and it hurt. But then we did it. So I think I'm kind of answering the question. I think we just kind of gave in to what we all felt what needs to happen in the film, even if it's sad. Yeah.
And I think it's at the end. I don't want to spoil it, or perhaps we can see the Earth burning in the memory of the Zoopticon, and so this is a really tragical moment, and I think it should remind us a little bit on our situation now. And I think it's it's really difficult to make people feel something about this because it's so abstract, and so I think it's a good way to have kind of humor and strange things before this, to deliver this message in a way. So I think this was important for me. And you want to add something?
Yes, I think the tragic and the comical side of art is always best combined. At least that's my taste, and that's also one reason why it's a musical, because in good musicals they can convey this, and animation can do that pretty well too. So I think it's the perfect form to deliver something of this ambivalence, which is kind of where the interesting stuff happens.
Yeah, definitely. And there's this moment also when they decide to erase all the memories, which is kind of like a metaphor for maybe what we are doing, ignoring the past. So I think that was really a nice moment of the film. I'll do a last round. You kind of already spoiled the question because you were here yesterday, but I'm curious about it. Looking at the final result, at the film, and looking at your first idea when you first thought, I want to do a film about this movement, do you think it's similar? Were there many surprises, changes with the filmmaking?
We only knew that they were producing a play. We were asking through various conduits of the movement, and a person from the Brigada Nacional do Patativa da Açaré in Sao Paulo said there's a group in the state of Pará, in the Amazonian state of Pará, and they are producing a play. That's kind of all we knew. But I think we knew, or we had a fairly good intuition that irrespective of what the nature of that play was, it's still about utilizing the possibility or utilizing cinema or cinema production as a way of talking around the subject would happen naturally anyway. So, but of course we write, okay, what's the play? I think we kind of had a good intuition and know that the fight that the landless workers movement is undergoing consistently. Actually, one of the things that you might notice very much so in terms of that consistent fight is both that at the end of the film, the song that's being sung by that they're all taking part in on the site of the massacre and the anniversary, and the music that it's originally from have quite a long space in between them. And also when you see a lot of young people that are shouting Reforma Agraria, it's not exactly very contemporary sounding in terms of activism. It's because it's the same fight. This, next year will be 40 years of the movement officially as an official movement, and they're still fighting for the same thing they were fighting 40 years ago. And this is kind of similar in a sense. It's like we can throw out the past all we want, but some things aren't changing, and if we don't start to look at this lack of change, then we're really kind of stuck, aren't we?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Inés, same question.
Can you?
When you look at the final result and you watch the film, do you think it's similar to what was your first idea, or were you surprised with the outcome?
I think it is near what I was looking for, but also surprising how things turn out in images, because I think you never know how is it going to work, everything, like the actors, the setting, the lighting, the sound, like it's just layer over layer. But I'm really like at ease with what is there. Yeah.
Thank you. And how surprised were you or not with the final result? I mean,
I think in the end, from the very vague fantasy of anthropomorphic animals singing something about philosophy to what we have now, it was a long journey, and I'm really surprised still we made it here. And now that this goes out into the world, it's really amazing to see how it connects to also a context like this here, in which it is screened with other movies which also have a political context, and how it reacts to that. So that's actually quite a revelation to me, how it works in context now.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps a short answer. As I'm coming from documentary, filmmaking is for me always a process. And so perhaps I always had this in mind, and I didn't had that much this finished picture in my head. So it's normally for me to have a development, and but I'm really surprised what came out at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Like those two. Yeah.
well, thank you so much for your words, and good luck to your future projects, and hopefully you can come back here to Curtas, and we'll have another round of talks. Tomorrow at 4:30 again, at 3:30, sorry, we will have another conversation with the filmmakers here. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.